guys? I'm Travis of Fish Hook Bait Company. I had a pretty good sized order come in for our heavy cover jigs. I wanted to take y'all through the process of how these jigs are made, and the first process is pouring. If you do notice, I do have my respirator on. Most of the time I always wear my respirator when I'm messing with this lead pot. Even the fan in the background is usually on, just because you don't want to get lead poison and stuff like that. That's not very good for you. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to pour a few of these without my respirator on so y'all can understand and hear me very clearly. Main thing is you got to make sure your mold's hot. This mold has actually been preheating for about 10 minutes. The pot's been on. It takes about 45 minutes to get the lead hot in the pot. Basically all you do is you'll load your mold up with your hooks and the rooster in the background. Y'all can hear him. Hopefully he don't come and visit us today. He's pretty bad about jumping in the shop. But basically what you'll do is you'll load your mold up with your base hole pins and your hooks, and you just close the mold up and pour it. One of the keys to it is if you get into doing this very often, sometimes you'll get missed pours if your spout isn't big enough. So these particular molds, I've actually drilled the spout out a little bit. But the biggest thing is making sure your mold is good and hot, your lead is good and hot, and it's pure lead. If you don't use pure lead, it doesn't pour as well. So you just close your mold up, make your pours, and when you just let them sit and relax, harden up a little bit, and then it comes out like that. And then what you'll do, let me find my side cutters. A lot of guys, they'll take this spud and they'll rock it back and forth and tear it off, and what I've had is a tendency, it actually leaves a hole in your head, and I don't particularly like that, because I'm trying to make a really quality product. So I'll just cut the spud off of it with a pair of side cutters, and then that spud will go back into the pot, get remelted down, so there ain't no waste on any of them. Another thing is I let my heads pretty much fully cool before I'll pull this weed guard out, because if you don't let them fully cool before you pull that base hole pin where the weed guard goes at, it'll actually wallow that hole out to where your weed guards aren't going to stay in your jig as well. There ain't enough glue in the world that'll keep them in there. You really want a tight fit on that weed guard hole, so your weed guards will actually stay in there. I'm going to probably do a time lapse right now, get to pouring a few of them, and we'll go on to the next process once this. See, a lot of times, if it ain't poured correctly or there's a little bit of trash in the lead, sometimes that weed guard won't pour all the way. So this one I have to get remelted down to save the lead off of it. The hook's probably going to be pretty much trash though. It takes that Teflon coating off the hook once you take the lead off of these things. So guys, as you can see, we poured up about 15-20 jigs. It don't take very long. Once you get in the rhythm of it, you get everything set up, you get your little assembly line. It's a lot cheaper. It's a pretty big investment up front, but with the way baits are nowadays, if you do want to get into doing this yourself, it's very easy. It's very simple. It don't take too much time, but you save money in the long run. And I mean, me personally, it's really fun to do. I really enjoy doing this. And guys, there's nothing like catching a fish on something that you made. Like, it is the best feeling in the world. The next step on these is we're going to be cutting these spuds off, remelting them down, and then after that we'll let these heads fully cool a little bit, give it about another 30 minutes to fully cool, and then we'll start the paint and baking process. And we'll see y'all on that one here in a little bit, guys. Alright guys, we finished the pouring process. The jig's already cooled off. I'm fixing to show you how to remove the base hole pin. You just take your pliers, grab the base hole pin and twist it off. That's going to leave you a good tight weed guard hole. We also got to sand the top of these heads down to get ready for the painting process. I usually just use a file. I'll file them down. You can twist them off if you want to, but I've noticed that you have a tendency of having a hole in your head, and I'm just not going to sell something like that. And I'm trying to make this the most efficient way possible to actually not waste a lot of product. You can see it just takes a little bit to file that head down. It doesn't take very long. It's a really, really good way to have a high quality product. Let me get one in here. Go ahead and do another one for y'all. Pull the base hole pin out. Sometimes you got to wiggle it a little bit. Take your file, run it down there. Just be careful, because you will hook yourself if you're not holding it right. I actually grab it right here to where the hook's inside my hand and rest my finger on it, and I'll file it down. For the powder painting process, what you'll need is a couple of these Teflon base hole pins too. You can use the metal ones, but once you heat it up, I can't get the powder paint off of these. So I don't really, because I have to cut these to size for each one of my molds, and that takes some time. So I usually don't use these unless it's during the pouring process, because I like to reuse them. So I'll take the Teflon ones, and what you do is you just take your Teflon base hole pins and put it in the same hole. Get you a couple of them laid out. Now, these are a must. You gotta have some vice grips. Grab them. You just set it on the hook, pretty snug. I use a blowtorch. You can use a heat gun. I've used heat guns in the past. I'm not a real big fan of the heat gun, just because it seems like they wear out a lot faster. I have my bowl full of my powder paint here, and I'll just take a fork and I'll sift it through just like you do flour. When you get ready to make biscuits, you just sift it through. The key to this is you can't get it too hot. With a heat gun, you're not going to get it too hot unless you just leave it on there a while. I'll say a heat gun usually takes 5 to 10 seconds to actually get it good and hot where the paint's going to stick good. The blowtorch, you got to be a little bit more careful. You'll see me, I'll be fanning the heat on it to get it just to the right temperature. If you get it too hot, it's going to leave drips in your paint, and that's not something that you're going to want. It's not going to leave a high quality product at the end. So I'll just take it and I'll fan the heat on it, and I'll sit there and let it cool for a second, and then I'll just knock the paint off, and you see how it leaves just a perfect finish. Once this process is done and you got them painted, you still have to bake these in a toaster oven, and I got quite a few here I'm going to bake. Basically all you do is you'll go through and you'll coat every one of these, and you'll throw them in the oven for 10 minutes at 350 degrees, and then after that you don't have to worry about the paint chipping off. You will scratch this paint if you're fishing around a lot of rocks, but most of the time you don't have to worry about it chipping off like regular painted jigs. And we pay a lot of money for these baits, guys, and I want something that's going to last and be very, very sustainable, I guess you could say. I just don't want to produce something that's not something I would use and doesn't last as long as the way I think it should last. So there's you another one. It's very simple. It's not very hard to do. About every 4 or 5 jigs, you need to resift your flour. I've tried the powder coating vats. I don't particularly care for the vats. just because it throws, I don't know if I didn't have my air pressure set right or what, but it throws powder paint everywhere. It seems like you waste more of it than what you actually use. And powder paint's not expensive, or not cheap, guys. It's really expensive. And that's about all there is to it, guys. I'm going to get to making a few of these, painting them all up and throw them in the oven. And then when we get done with this, I'll show you all the tying process. Alright guys, I got the all the jigs painted. Don't be looking too closely what I got put in the oven here. I got some prototypes I'm working on and a few spinner baits and everything I'm making for a few guys. But basically all you're going to do is you're going to bake these baits for 10 minutes at 350 degrees. Make sure they're not touching each other. I hang mine on the rack in the toaster oven. When they get done, they're going to be really good painted baits. You're not going to have to worry about them chipping. They will scratch a little bit on the jigs, but like these spinner baits and buzz baits and some few other baits that I'm working on, when you're just fishing them every day through the grass and everything, you're not going to lose that paint job. That you pay too much more for these baits, that you want them to last and stay looking good as long as possible. And basically, you can see how I have them hung up on the rack. And what I'll do is I'll just sit there, I'll slide this rack in there, and they're going to shake and everything. But I'll wait till they kind of settle out a little bit, because they done cooled off enough to where they're not going to be just sticking to each other. But I kind of wait them for them to stop, and then so they're not going to touch each other through the baking process. So then I'll just close the door. We'll set it at 350 and turn it on and let her go, guys. On this next process, excuse me, on this next process, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hand tying them. I'll show you how we pick our colors out and how we tie everything. And guys, it's really simple. It's really easy. Anybody can do this. Saves you a lot of money if you do this yourself also. So just stick around. We'll get into the hand tying process here in a second. Alright guys, I got the jigs out of the oven. They've cooled off. That paint is really set in. You can tell how good of a shine it really did put on them. Now it's time to tie them. This is probably, how you do this process is probably the most important part in the action of the lure and everything. You're going to need you some tabs. You can get these tabs from Barlow's, Jan's, Do It Molds, any kind of online tackle store that sells this type of stuff to make your own baits and jigs. I'll personally get my tabs from siliconetab.com, and they have a really good selection. They got fast shipping. They're really good people. This one's going to be our Pines Perch colors. So that's one of the accent colors on our Pines Perch. It's a purple and copper. And we're going to use a half tab of that. And we're going to need a half tab of this. I think it's called Blue Bug. It has some blue and copper in it also. And just a tab and a half of green pumpkin. It's really good color. I tie with 6-pound braid. You're going to need a bobbin. You take that bobbin and you start wrapping, and I start at the back, and then I just stack them layers of thread on top of each other, and I got my tag in, and I'm just going over that tag in just like you tie a eye on a rod on. I get it cut, and then I'll stack my green pumpkin tab, the full tab, and then my 2 accent colors and my other green pumpkin on top. So they're stacked fully together into one another. And then what I'll do is I'll come to the back and I'll fold it around my thread. And then I'll pull it up to the edge of the jig, and then I'll just start wrapping. And it's just feathering it through there. Just like that. Then take my alligator clip. I clip the skirting around the hook. I make sure my skirting's all the way around, and then I just start wrapping a few loose ones, and then I really cinch it down. That's the most important part that initial cinch. And I'm sorry about the rooster, guys, if y'all heard him crowing. He likes to hang around the building. Tie my first knot. Tie your first knot. And then your second knot, what I do is I just make a loop. 1 twist, 2 twists, 3 twists. Go around the hook and the skirting, and then I tighten it and work it down until I get it into that other knot. Now you got your jig tied. Now you cut the... I'm sorry about the rooster. Cut your tag end down on it. Take your cement. You probably don't need your cement. The way I cinch it down, I've never had one do it before. You just go around it and glue it in. Does anybody want a rooster? He'd go really good in a pot right about now. I've been fighting that rooster all day trying to make this video. But anyways, now your skirt's tied. I wait to trim it until after I put my weed guard in. Hold on, guys, let me get a weed guard. So this is just an 1/8 inch F30 weed guard. It's a really good weed guard. It compresses really well. You just throw you a little bit of super glue in there in the weed guard hole, and you push it down, and there it is. I use the gel. You can use liquid. It doesn't matter, I don't think. You just don't want to put too much. You just want to put a dab on it, because if you put too much, when that glue dries, it's going to leave a white film on your head coming out of that weed guard. And yes, you can wipe it off. It comes off very easily, but that's just another process that you have to go through. And sometimes if you put it on too much, it really gets on there where you can't get it off. Then going on my hook, or my trimming my skirt, I go 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch behind my hook. That really makes that skirting shorter to where it flares really, really well. And you can see that that's where all the action your bait is. It flares it really, 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 really well, guys. Then I'll take my weed guard, and I'll trim that weed guard about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch above that hook point. And here comes old rooster himself. I guess he heard about me putting him in a pot. But guys, anyways, these jigs, they do catch a lot of fish. They're really hand quality. I take a lot of pride into making them. If y'all do want to purchase these jigs, you can pick them up at fishhookbaitcompany.com. And I have a discount code, FishHook10. It's going to give you a 10% discount on your code, on your purchase. Sorry. And guys, I know LiveScope's the big thing now. You don't have to have LiveScope to still catch fish. These baits still do catch big fish, and I've caught a lot of big fish on this jig. This one, I believe, is the best jig on the market. It really does outperform a lot of the other jigs that I've fished over the years, and this is my favorite bait to throw. I throw it 365 days a year. I'm fixing to do a video on how I rig it. I use one trailer year round, and I'm going to give y'all all the juice on how I modify that trailer to fish it in all water conditions and all water colors. And guys, I really appreciate y'all tuning in and watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Thank y'all.